Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Jeff Bajorek, and I'm here with the lovely Kristina Evans. Hi, Kristina.
Hello.
And we're here to talk today about a lot of different things. But what's interesting about this Blab is that Kristina and I actually met each other virtually via another Blab that we were a part of a couple weeks ago. And it's a really cool platform, and it's still in beta, and we can tell it's still in beta. So please forgive us if we drop out or the audio is a little kind of fuzzy for a little bit. But it's a really cool platform. If you're here and would like to join us, please call in. We've got a couple of seats available. But I wanted to talk to Kristina today about inspiration, about both of our inspirations, really. And Kristina writes a lot. And by a lot, I mean 3 or 4 times a week. And what really inspires me about the way Kristina writes is that how personal it can be. And I think very often, and myself included, we don't want to write about personal things because, oh, that's personal. Do people want to know what I want to know or what I'm talking about? Do people want to know what I've gone through or what I'm looking forward to? And the answer to that is yes, unequivocally. You're not going to reach everybody, but you're going to reach a few people, and those few people will be so dialed into what you're doing, you're going to immediately have friends. And that's why I like Kristina. So, Kristina, what got you to get so personal with your writing?
Well, I think I've always been a very, I guess I've always been an open book, is what I can say. I've always prided myself on being transparent, putting emotion into things, and maybe saying things or doing things that not everybody feels comfortable saying or doing. So it's kind of funny because I've always been a closet writer, is what I call myself. I grew up writing in notebooks, rewriting Sylvia Plath's poetry, and just really, honing in on my writing abilities, but behind closed doors. I was familiar with posting on LinkedIn, but it wasn't something that I thought would be possible for me. I saw all these LinkedIn influencers and, all these big name people posting. I was like, okay, well, that's for them. I don't think that's for me. Right. And then I started, reading some people who maybe weren't, these huge influencers with huge followings. And I said, why can't I write like that? So I gave it a go. I reached out to a couple of my friends just via message and said, hey, when I'm reading some of my writing and let me know if I have something. I felt like I needed that reassurance at that point. But then once I hit click on that first post, I've been addicted since then. So,
oh, cool.
Yeah.
So how much of a rush is it for you to say publish? How much are you like really, really excited and then terrified at the same time?
So I'm never terrified, believe it or not.
Wow. Okay.
I feel like if people are going to read it, great. If people are going to comment on it, great. If they don't, then okay, that's fine. I still really enjoyed the process.
Got it.
What I've found is that I'm not one of those people who gets a thought, writes about it, and then I let it simmer. I, go to sleep for the night. I wake up and I double check it. And then I'm like, oh, okay. No, I write it from the heart, in my authentic voice. And then I read through it one more time and then I hit publish. So all of my articles, and I can speak to this in truth, every single published post that I have is probably about a 2-hour process.
Okay.
And that's including, creating custom graphics now for my posts.
Okay. Yeah. So 2 hours beginning to end, and you press send, and it's probably the 2 hours prior to you pressing send, right? So if it's published at 1:01 p.m., you started right before lunch?
I usually write on lunchtime. Sometimes what I'll do is, because obviously I work full time, sure. I don't write on the clock. What I like to do is right when I first get into work, I come in a little bit early. But yeah, I'd say from start to finish, maybe 2 hours. Okay. My Prince article that actually got picked up by LinkedIn Pulse, I wrote that in about 20 minutes. I'm not going to lie. So
Terry Bean is looking that up right now. I can hear Terry typing from like 20 minutes away because I was sitting next to Terry. Actually, we were at a leadership event last week, and I was sitting next to him when the news broke. And Terry's a big Prince fan. Big.
So am I, Terry.
He was wearing purple that day and everything, and coincidentally, and he wouldn't let me stop hearing about it for the last half of the program. He's like, "Man, did you hear Prince died? I know you heard Prince died, right? We lost Prince, right?" And I'm wearing purple today too. But that's awesome. That's awesome. You just get it started, get it out there, and go, and then it's gone. And for you.
Yeah, it's gone. And sometimes, LinkedIn can be a little funny. I don't know if you've experienced this when you've hit publish, but when I go back and look through it, I'll see that it omitted something that I put in, or maybe there's a funky space that didn't show on my end. So I have to, I'll go in and re-edit, or if someone messages me and says you spelled something wrong, I'll go in and re-edit it. But for the most part, hit publish and wait to see what happens.
Wow. Now, the interesting thing about LinkedIn and stuff kind of going viral or not is I have a friend who works in PR, and he talked about something. He talked about Twitter, and when there was the last kind of civil upheaval in France, in Paris, and he wrote about misinformation and how people were reposting stuff that happened actually the previous time in France, and there were retweets and things that weren't related to the actual goings on, and how that kind of fed the frenzy. And he talked about the fact checking and how everything is instantaneous, so it's really easy to click retweet and without going back and verifying your sources. And he got like 50,000 views on that in 24 hours. And he just every couple hours he would just send me a number, and he's like, "My head is spinning around here. I can't believe I've gotten this much exposure on it." And it's funny too, is I'll write stuff that I think is it's okay, it's good enough to publish, and it'll get 100 views. And then I'll write something that is outstanding. I am so proud to have this represent me. And then 4 people see it. And I don't understand how that works. And it's really, really kind of curious to me. And I don't publish on LinkedIn as often as I publish on my website. And I should probably just co-post that more often. I don't really know why I don't. But it's really interesting how some stuff, how we all kind of hold our own, we have our own regard for our own work, right?
Yes. Exactly. Well, and I think that you hit on a couple of good points. And I've kind of been, being a newer, I guess, publisher. There's a couple of things that I've started to learn or pick up on just from other people in the game, or just from, trial and error. And one is you can never publish on too many forums. So what I'm starting to do now is, I publish still through LinkedIn primarily, but I'm sharing it on BB. I'm sharing it on Twitter. I'm probably I'm working on a WordPress behind the scenes. So that will be, coming out probably within the next few weeks. It's never, bad to share as much as possible. And the other thing that I'm finding out is that timing is everything. Okay. I've found that certain days that I publish, or certain times that I publish, my articles don't have as much visibility. So I've been trying to play around with the times that I'm publishing, and, seeing how that impacts views.
Okay.
Yeah.
So are you going to share with us, or are you going to keep these to yourself?
Well, I found that Tuesdays and Thursdays tend to be more of the hot times that people are looking at content. Monday, I feel like people are looking at shares more than they are posts. Okay. That's what I've noticed from my experience. But Tuesdays and Thursdays, like around 10 or 11 a.m. Eastern, it's been the time that I've gotten the most out of those hits. Okay,
that's interesting. I've never actually gotten to the point of paying attention to that, right? So I know that I need to write at least once a week, because I need to write something that's publishable at least once a week. And so my deadline, so to speak, is Sunday morning. That's when my newsletter goes out. So sometimes I publish stuff at 7:50, and then by 8 o'clock, my newsletter goes out. And then other times I'll write something on Thursday, and so I just post it. I post it when I can. And what I've found, and maybe you're better at this than I am, you're probably better at this than I am. I feel like I need to wait until I'm inspired in order to write. I've got to be in the right place at the right time. I've got young kids. I've got a wife who still likes me somehow, despite the fact that I'm running around trying to grow a business. And so sometimes I need to have a clear head and a clear space to think. And it's tough to force that. Right? Yes. So how do you decide when to write?
So I'm kind of the same way. I have to have something that's triggering inspiration, right? I can't just sit there and pull something out of behind, so to speak. The way that my writing has kind of morphed since I started. First, I was writing a lot about musical lyrics. Everything I write, I try to tie back to professional meaning, whether it's personal or not. There's a couple posts that just have been personal in general that haven't really tied back. But one thing that I've started doing is reading a lot of other people's writing and seeing what triggers my thoughts. So I spend a good amount of time reading each day just to kind of drive the inspiration factor. And I've noticed that I really like to write about something that happens, news-wise. So, for example, Tom Brady,
right.
How can I tie that back? It's interesting. How can I tie that back to a professional meaning? And then it becomes this challenge for me, which I also really appreciate in my writing. So, yeah, just depends. What about you?
Working as a sales and business development coach, there's a lot of different topics that come up. And what I'll realize is that as I'm working with my clients throughout the week, it always seems like there's a common theme. And I don't know what that's about, but I recognize it. And so when that's a common theme, I kind of feel like that's the pulse of where my clients and where my potential clients and just other salespeople in general are, whether it's a wavelength or a harmonic in the universe or whatever you want to tie that to. If that's just the energy that's going on, then I'll try to write about that. And sometimes it does, and sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes I have the idea and I think it's a great idea and I get 40 words out of it. I'm like, yeah, that's pretty much it. Okay, well, that's a tweet. That's a LinkedIn status update. That's, and then there's other times when I can't complete the thought within 1,000 words. And, most of my posts are between 500 and 700 words. Some of them are shorter. I don't mind when they're shorter, but I always wonder if I really got everything I needed to out of it. And then there's other times where 1,000 words, 1,500 words, that's almost long form. And I wonder if that's counterproductive. And, one of the things that I've done is I let the content drive it. I write incomplete thoughts. I try to be a pretty good editor, so I'm not using too many words and running on, but I'm also cognizant that I write like I talk. And as you can tell, I use a lot of words. And I think that makes it more personal. I think authenticity is a really, really big deal. And I think that regardless of search engine optimization and regardless of posting times and regardless of all that stuff, it's important to be aware of it. It's important to use it so that people will find it. But I'm more concerned with when I meet someone either organically on the street at a networking event, or I meet someone on Blab, or I just, someone hears about me for whatever reason. When they go to look me up, because that's a thing now, you can be looked up. I can be looked up. I want them to find me. I don't want them to find a bunch of keywords. Now, if the two line up, awesome. But I think them finding me is more important than me maximizing my search potential. And I think that's a little backwards compared to, common practice these days.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, are too concerned with search engine optimization. And like you said, if you read some of the articles that you can tell are too concerned with SEO, because every other word's, a hyperlink.
Right.
You don't have to do that. To be honest with you, like you said, making genuine and authentic connections based on who you are and your ability to write and connect with people. I've had the ability to have a consistent following now. So I have, that five to six people that I know that I'm going to count on that are going to engage with me every time I post with something.
Right.
So there's that accountability factor. And then they share with their networks, and great. But I think that, search engine optimization is something that people get too carried away with. And people are going to look you up and they're going to find you. And then if they find your writing as a byproduct of finding you, awesome. That's awesome.
And what I've noticed too is being kind of a one-man band. I read the articles, I watch the videos, I see people talking about search engine optimization and offline search engine optimization and trending topics and hashtags, and you got to this, you got to this, you got to this. And that seems so contrived to me And it also seems like a lot of stuff that I don't want to concern myself with, because if I'm just concerned about being found, I'm not going to have enough bandwidth to provide any content worth finding.
Yeah.
And ultimately, I'm my own product, right? I'm just trying to let people know what I'm about so that they want to know more about me and so that we can work together. So that's kind of a balance that I find is tricky to hang on to and tricky to keep.
Yeah, I'm right with you. We're on the same page 100% with that. You know, I want people to find me. And like you said, that's just a representation of what knowledge I have stored in my head, or, you know, what I might bring to the table. But at the end of the day, we want them to find us, not the other way around. So, right.
That's fun. So what are you writing about now?
I actually just published something right before we came on.
Okay.
So what I've also been writing about, much like you know, writing about your experiences and the pain points of your clients. I like to write about, you know, recruiting from a recruiter's perspective, and try to share knowledge with job seekers. So I just finished writing an article about skill set versus cultural fit and which one is more important. I vote for cultural fit.
I think so too.
Hands down. I feel like skill can be taught, skill can be learned. But if someone doesn't fit into your culture, you can't force that. So yeah, you'll have to read that.
Yeah. Talented jerks are cancerous.
Yes. They're all over the place, unfortunately.
They are. They're I want to say they're the ones that maximize their search engine optimization, but I've got a lot of friends who are really cool guys and really cool ladies that maximize their SEO too. So, but the punchline was worth sharing. That's cool. I think culture is, you know, and I'm reading something too. Actually, I saw Marcus Buckingham speak at this leadership event last week, and he was hands down the best speaker of the day, because I think he fit the theme of what people were looking for from this leadership conference. But Marcus Buckingham spent a ton of time with the Gallup organization and formulated and took a look at data. And if you're familiar with the Clifton Strengths Finder personality profile, I was involved with some companies who that was their culture, right? But he talks with his latest work about management, and about how a company does not have to have one culture, but each individual team has to have its own culture. So you can have these micro cultures within a singular culture, and every individual culture, if you will, to overuse that word, has its own specific strengths and skill sets that can contribute to the overall whole. And so it's interesting that culture is kind of a buzzword, because especially anymore with the newer companies and the bigger ones, you know, we don't care what you wear to work, just make some effort, please. You know, what do you do really well, and what is your value? And it's not everybody standing in single file lines and going to lunch with their buckets at the same time. I mean, it's, you know, hey, get this work done. You need to work from home because that makes you do better work, then work from home. You want to work 9 to 5? Great. You want to work 6 to 2? Great. Like, just get your work done. Right. And it's kind of interesting how so many new companies are just aware of allowing culture to happen. If that makes sense.
Yeah. I don't think culture can sometimes get a bad definition, I guess, put to it. And I agree with you. You know, there could be multiple cultures within, but they all blend together for that same common goal. The military is a great example. You know, I was a medic, and our medical team had a different culture than maybe the explosive ordnance team. Right. Everybody was kind of their own brotherhood within a larger brotherhood. Okay. But we all had the same common goal. So I think that you're right. Instead of forcing what the company sees as the culture onto everybody else, it's how can we hire a diverse group of people with awesome intangible qualities, right, to create a culture that makes people want to work here. Sure. Once, you know, it's valuable. So I think that that's more of what I think of when I think of culture. And that's what we're trying to drive here, you know, is we want to be a fun place to come to. We want to work hard and play hard. Right. Yeah. Okay. So now you've got some explaining to do. So which branch of the service were you in? And thank you for your service. Okay. And how did you go from medicine to recruiting?
I have a
Oh,
background in medicine too, so that's why it struck with me, because my degree's in medicine, so not selling. So, what's your story, Evans? Spill it.
ooh, this is so wow. This became like a little mini bio on Kristina. So I did things ass backwards in my life. Let's just be real honest right there.
Okay.
So I actually finished my associates. Well, okay, they threw it at me because I had gone there long enough.
Okay.
At the University of Arkansas. So I was born and raised in Arkansas. I hung out on my grandma's farm. I had a really nice, little childhood there, running around barefoot. I actually joined the military when I was 21. So I waited a little bit later, joined the Air Force. I joined the Air Force not knowing what my job was going to be, which was a little scary because they assigned us a job about sixth weekend, graduated in the seventh week. So a lot of people in my dorm, I don't know, they all got assigned security forces. It's like, oh crap, I'm going to become, security forces. I don't know if that's me. And I got medical technician, which was really cool. Was in for 4 years. I met my husband in the military. Mm-hmm. 2 months after our first date, we were married. 9 years later, we're still here. When I got out of the military, it's just because I had a change in direction in my life. I was pregnant with my second child. Mm-hmm. I didn't see myself as staying there forever, like I did in the beginning. So I got out, went back to school. I said, what can I do that is going to afford me opportunities to find a job? Can't work as a medic because the hours are inconsistent.
Oh, sure.
So I chose human resources. And I was fortunate enough to land an internship the same week I graduated.
Okay.
And about 6 weeks in, they created an entry-level recruiting role for me. And I said, well, duh, I'm going to take it. And so recruiting fell into me. I didn't fall into it. So I didn't choose it, but I love it. And I love to talk. And I love people. So it was a win-win situation.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
So you didn't even pick medic. You were voluntold that you were going to be a medic.
Love that.
And then I just learned that just a couple of weeks ago too. So I'm happy I could put that into play.
Yeah, that was a good choice of words there. That word almost makes me like cringe every time I hear it. Like, oh, what are we being voluntold to do today? Right. Yeah, that's great.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
So how long have you been recruiting then?
I've been recruiting for a little over 4 years.
Okay.
So, but I've been fortunate enough and passionate enough to move up pretty quickly in my career by going kind of more of the small business startup route. Okay. I think everybody is different. I have friends who are still in the same, entry level type of role 4 years out of college, and that's great too. I've made some very risky moves that have gotten me to where I am, and I'm happy. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's what it's about. I mean, there's that risk reward relationship, and also, just being willing to say, hey, this might not work, but it's going to be okay if it doesn't.
Right.
Right. I mean, and that's too many people stay in their lanes because people like us do things like this, and they're selling themselves short. And I know it's hard. It's tough to do, but that's a blab for another time. Really, risk is a blab for another time. But congratulations to you, because that's it's hard to do. But when you step out there, it's amazing what kind of things open up for you. And I can't tell you how many times that I've been put in a great position. People tell me I'm lucky all the time, and a lot of people don't realize how many chances I take to get lucky. And you know what? They don't always work out. I mean, I'm not, a lot of calculation goes into the risks that I take, but they don't always work. And so a lot of people don't see that, and I'm sure it hasn't all been rosy for you either, but you take your steps along the path, and you take your lumps along the way, and you end up moving and accelerating through and doing great things. And now you've officially gone viral.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. It's been really interesting, I'll tell you that much. And I'm taking it for everything that it's worth.
Mhm.
Good and bad, but more so good than bad.
Yeah.
Right. So you got to take the positive out of the situation. And like you said, all risks are not always going to pan out.
Sure.
But I'll tell you what, some of the best things that have happened to me have been when I've pushed myself into a very uncomfortable place.
Yes.
And pushed through it, or learned from it when I failed epically. But those are some of the best things that have happened, like standing in front of a crowd of unionized teachers telling them that, hey, we're the service that your school district outsourced to. That's never a fun thing to do. But when you do it with a smile, it seems like people receive it a little bit better. But yeah, I've definitely had my fair share of doing that. And I'm sure you have as well. And I've burned a couple bridges along the way, and you learn from it.
You do. And you have to. And that's what it's about.
And it drives our content too.
Tying it all back to inspiration.
I was trying to get us back on track. It drives our content. These are life stories that other people can learn from as a result of the choices we've made.
There's no question. And even as wordy as I tend to get sometimes when I tell stories, people will come back to me afterwards and they're like, wow, that was really good. That was you. You were speaking from here. Right. And I think what's interesting is, and actually I was talking to Terry earlier I made sure I reminded him about this. And thanks again, Terry, for joining us. And the word inspire comes from the root of in spirit, as if, the Holy Ghost or the Holy Spirit or whatever spirit you believe in is kind of working through you at that time. I think it's been referred to as the muse, right? I mean, you just get going and all of a sudden you're a channel or a conduit for whatever energy that is, and that you're putting out there. And that is, it's a good place to know you're coming from.
Yeah.
Right. And so that inspiration and those things that drive you and those things that make it okay for you to take those risks, those things that when you sit down and you're like, wow, this might not work, but I have to get this out here. Right. This is a really good idea. I don't know who it's going to help, but I got to put it out there, and you go. And that's kind of the root and the spirit of inspiration. And you're right. It does drive us all. And there's a difference between inspiration and motivation. And I think inspiration is more important. So you inspire me, Kristina.
Oh, you inspire me too. We'll have to talk offline too at some point, because I need to talk to you about this whole website thing you have going on. I need to take things to another level, and things have been great with the responses that I've been getting, but now it's like, oh, okay, people are asking for more, and I don't know how to give that to them and still make it beneficial for me too. I know that sounds horrible, but I'm trying to trick myself into realizing that it's okay to say that if you're going to help a lot of people, that you also have to get something for yourself at some point as well.
Well, and the giving is beneficial, because the giving and seeing the results and the fruits of that help you to want to give more, inspire you to give more. But at the same time, you've got to look, and there's a cost to your time, there's a cost to your effort, and you have to determine if that cost, or if that cost or the reimbursement you're getting from that, whether it's monetary or otherwise, is worth what you're giving up to produce it, right? You're already publishing on LinkedIn. You're already doing a lot of things with different social media networks, and you've done pretty well without having a homepage website of your own. Well, now who's going to manage your website? That's going to take time. And you've got a husband and kids and all these other things that, that go on. And it's, there's some factors there for sure.
Yeah. And that's the part that I'm kind of struggling with is, obviously the work-life balance is difficult. As I'm sure you can understand. And it's very hard. I mean, you've read Keenan's book. It's very hard. And one part of his book really hit me hard because I've been through the same thing. My husband really doesn't get my emphasis on this. He doesn't really understand how it's important for me to create content or why I'm on LinkedIn and it's such a big deal to me. So that part's been kind of a struggle. And he tries to be supportive. Don't get me wrong. He's not mean. He just doesn't get how that focus is important in this day and age. So I handed him a copy of the book. I put it in the bathroom, so I hope he reads it. But
you know, later say, you left us here.
Well, and it's difficult because we're kind of in two different chapters, so to speak. You know, he's been working for the government for the last 6 years, and it's just he goes to work, he does his job, and he comes home.
Right.
And I'm not that way. I'm always wanting more, and it's just it's just very different. So,
And I run into that with clients too, who aren't on LinkedIn and don't understand why it's important. And they say, well, yeah, I try to go find these people that I want to get in touch with on LinkedIn and they're not there. What kind of advice are you giving me? And I said, well, how long are you planning to be in this business? Mary, if you're out in 2 years, then don't get on LinkedIn. Don't get on Twitter. Don't do anything. You just talk to your friends and share baby pictures on Facebook too. That's fine. Whatever you want to do. I understand that. But where are we going with this?
Mm-hmm.
And let's look a little bit further than tomorrow. Let's look further than the end of the week, the end of the month, the end of the year. Let's look at the end of time. Where's this trending and how long are you going to be doing this? And would you rather be established by the time everybody catches up, or do you want to do the catching up?
Right.
And then the light bulb kind of goes off. And I say, look, I know you want instant gratification. We all want instant gratification. I said, but it doesn't take a lot to do, for one. It doesn't take a lot to win, right? I mean, you're you can, if you meet that one connection, that could be the one that sets you up for the rest of your career, right? So it doesn't take a lot of connecting in order to judge it as a success. And at the same time, it's more likely, whether it's LinkedIn or something that LinkedIn morphs into, it's there. This is the way people communicate now.
Yeah.
And the stubborn nature of people who refuse to see the value in that is almost comical, because conceptually it's the same thing. It's just, if people want to be contacted by social media instead of contacted by phone, isn't it up to them?
You think people would get that. Unfortunately, a lot of people just don't embrace change.
Sure.
And that's just the way it is. And honestly, I don't see it as change. I see it as this is the way of life now. Right. People are connecting. You have to have a digital footprint, and that's just the end all be all if you want to be a player in the game.
Yes.
And that includes driving content, whether it's just shares or 40 character posts,
right,
or whatever the case may be. You have to engage just as much as you have to be digitally present. Right. So I think that's what I'm starting to learn, because I've been on LinkedIn for 4+ years. Mm-hmm. And I always thought, okay, I'm on LinkedIn. This is great. I connect with people. And then as soon as you start engaging, boom, it takes one piece of content, one person, boom, done. Right. And then you just got to upkeep. But it's a whole other game.
Yeah, you're right there. Well, thank you for sitting in with me this afternoon.
Thank you. We'll do it again soon.
I hope to. I hope to. So we'll get that settled up. I'm going to stop recording now.